Hi, this is Margot Escott with Improv Interviews. In the next two episodes, you're going to be hearing from the shaman of play, the founding father of play studies, Mr. Bernie Dekoven. Bernie's an incredible man who for the past 45 years has been teaching people how to have fun and enjoy playfulness through games. He's the author of several books, and he's an incredibly beautiful human being, and I know you're going to really like to learn more about Bernie. Enjoy. Hi, Bernie Dekoven.
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 Dekoven, damn it.
Oh, my God,
How many
I made
times have I told people it's Dekoven?
I've made a mistake already. I'm going to have to tweet about this later on. I've made a mistake. Bernie, I am just so joyful to be here with you today. You're like the father, the king of play. And I don't know how many people really know what kind of work you've been doing over the past 50 years, maybe? Close to 60?
50, I'm 50.
So, how did you get into this playfulness stuff? I mean, were you a playful kid? And what, by the way, is playfulness? What is that?
That's a good question. You want me to answer all of that right now?
No, let's get back to that.
Okay. All right. Let me start with how I got into play. Actually, every kid is into play. Some of us refuse to get out of play. I was one of those. I decided that the story that I tell, which I think is a true story, except, if you tell a story too many times, you don't remember if it's true or not, because the imagination kicks in and then something else kicks out. Anyhow, so I remember, and I think I remember being in like first grade and getting my first workbook. And I was all excited about the workbook because it was pretty. It had a shiny cover. It had color. The cover was color. And inside were all kinds of cartoons and cool-looking things. And so the teacher says, okay, class, everybody do the first page of the workbook. And I started doing the first page of the workbook. And I said, oh, man, this is really cool because there are all these puzzles in it. And I could just do the puzzles. And then the next thing the teacher says, okay, class, now continue from page 2 to page 5, and I'll be back in 3 minutes. And 2 minutes later, I'm doing these things that I'm saying, wait a minute. Wait, this is not a fun thing. This is like boring. and that was my first big step away from the universe in which normal people inhabit, because I began to really realize that I wanted to stay in that reality where I would be playing, and that I wanted to resist any attempts that the world was making on me to do anything other than that. And that's what I think. Now, I'm not sure, but I like that story. It sounds right. But
I love that story. I've read it many times. I'll buy that story.
Okay.
I'll buy that. So then you went through school. You went through college.
I went to college.
You went to college, yeah.
I have a master's degree in theater.
And did you ever hear of somebody named Viola Spolin?
Did I ever hear of Viola Spolin? Wait, I didn't. Hey, wait. Are we going to talk about playfulness also, or do you want to talk about Spolin?
Both.
Because that was one of the questions I thought you asked.
Yeah.
How'd you get into play? What is playfulness anyway?
Yeah.
But let's hold that playfulness question then.
Okay.
In abeyance. We'll hold it in abeyance, which is right outside of Dubuque, I believe.
I thought it was out of Des Moines, but that's okay.
Des Moines, yeah, well, it's somewhere in the Midwest. Okay, anyhow.
So you had a degree in theater. That's why I got into Viola. Theater.
Yes, Viola.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, okay. So I was hired by various connivances of myself to be a curriculum development specialist for an elementary school program in Philadelphia, and the curriculum was supposed to be in theater. I, Bernard, wanted at that time to make a curriculum in something that the kids cared about. And I didn't care if it really was theater. But I loved theater, so I tried. I started with theater. And I was looking for something that I thought would be fun for the kids to do, and viola was the first resource that I found that would make that possible. Now, I reinterpreted or misinterpreted her work so that I could work with the kids because her book Improvisation for the Theater, which is just a marvelous book, but it was really designed as to teach people how to do theater. And there was this whole idea of it was very carefully structured, and it was led by an adult who would be guided. Viola developed this process she called side coaching, and that was through the. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to find the kind of theater that kids wanted to do, and I didn't really even know what kids think is theater or anything close to theater like. So if I didn't have Spolin, I don't know how I would have started. And the game structure was a really valuable insight for me. It was a background that I was perceiving what the kids were doing through. And so eventually, I mean, the kids liked what I was doing. They liked coming down to the class. They used to call me Mr. Drama. And we were doing a lot of Spolin-esque things, but we were just doing it for the fun of it, not for, nobody got critiqued for their acting or anything. We would do things like, okay, let's pretend we're an ice cubes. We're all ice cubes, and we're melting together, and now we're frozen into one big ice cube. And now the sun comes out, and we're melting some more. And now we're just a pool of water, and we're slowly evaporating. That kind of stuff. Now that I think about it, I was still being the guide, but I was being a guide more in terms of just keeping the fantasy going than in terms of looking at their acting abilities or having them even be conscious of their acting abilities. So, but I realized after about 2 months of doing this that this really wasn't what I was looking for, because it wasn't. They didn't take it as their theater, They didn't take. You know how I could tell if I walked out of the room for a minute and came back in? That was my test. 1 minute, and if they were doing the same thing that they were doing when I left, then I knew I was kind of closer to where I needed to be. And invariably, a minute later, I came back and it was all chaos and havoc. They were running around. Well, we had a very beautiful amphitheater that we were doing it in. It was like 4, I think, consecutive levels that were all in a big circle, and they were carpeted. Can you imagine that? Looked like a pit from the top, but each level carpeted, and each step wide enough that you could, if you were a kid, you could lie down on and still have room. So it was about that. So it was a great place to run around in. I mean, there's circles, and you could run. One level could run one direction, the other could run. You could run up and down. So that's what they would do the moment I left. And the last thing I wanted to do was to stop them from doing what they want to do. I was just trying to find what. So one day I come in and I say, "Look, tell me something, just between you and me. Is there anything you'd actually want to do here?" So that was kind of said more in a panicky tone, like, "Is there anything you want to do here?" Kind of like that. I'm sorry, Mr. Soundman. Jesus, did I blow up something? I should have warned you. Anyhow, they said, yes, we want to play a game. So, a game. So I said, okay, what do you mean a game? They say, well, Duck, Duck, Goose. And I remember Duck, Duck, Goose. I knew that was a game, in fact. But I was kind of a little nervous about saying, oh, yeah, let's play Duck, Duck, Goose, because I was supposed to be teaching something. And having the kids just in this $250,000 theater environment with spotlights and microphones and having them play Duck, Duck, Goose seemed like something I really didn't want the principal to come down and see. But by that point, I had reached, I felt so lost in what I was trying to do because because nothing was coming from the kids yet. And the first thing that came from the kids was, we want to play a game. So I decided to let them play and see what would happen. And they played the game, and I walked out of the room, and I came back a minute later, and they were still playing the game. And then I walk out, and I go out. I'm out for 3 minutes. Children completely untrained, undisciplined, unguarded, unprotected, no one telling them what to do at all. And I come back in, and they're still playing. So I says to myself, I says, aha. I said, aha, like that. Aha. Because I had it. I got it. I knew what it was. It was games. And I actually, it wasn't until about 3 minutes later, and I'm in there and I'm watching the kids play the games, one of the kids asks me if I want to play too. Now, talk about breaking. First of all, it was like a really big compliment to me. I mean, I felt, oh my God, the kids actually wanted me in to play with them on the. Of course they did, but I was just so into the teacher-student, the necessary division between those two roles that it just never occurred to me that I could play with them. But they invited me, and I started playing, and oh, I forgot to tell you because I was also the other discipline that I had was playwriting. I got a master's degree in playwriting, and also kind of I like poetry a lot, and I like acting a lot. You know, acting made up stories and making up as I go, pretending and improvisation, as a matter of fact. That's another story which I made. Anyhow, so I come in and we started playing Duck, Duck, Goose. And one of the things I almost immediately realized was, like, I didn't really want to be chosen. You go around, the kid who's playing Fox goes around the circle, taps the kids on the head, and it goes, duck, 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 duck. And then when he wants to choose a kid, he says goose. And the goose has to stand up, run around the circle, and get back to his seat before the fox can tag him. And if the fox does tag him, then the fox sits down and the goose becomes the fox, or something like that. Or if he doesn't, and the roles change somehow because of that. But I didn't want to be chosen.
You didn't want to be. You didn't want to be it.
I did not want to be the goose.
Right.
I did not want to be, as one might say, goosed, because one might say that, because I knew, first of all, that those little stupid kids could run faster than I could, and I would be running for the rest of the whole session if I let myself. And that's when I realized that the extent of theater. Margot, it's so much fun watching your face as I talk. You are so there and so into me. It's just wonderful. I love it. What are you talking about? Oh yeah. So it was then I got a little taste then that something real was. It wasn't just play, forgive the expression, but it was something real that was being played with. Like, because I didn't want to be chosen, well, that happens to people a lot in life, that you don't want to be chosen. I mean, there you are sitting in the classroom and the teacher asks a question and you don't know the answer. And you don't want to be chosen. So what do you do? How do you look invisible? How do you look like somebody not worthy of being chosen? Well, there are a couple of strategies that you learn eventually as a student, and you learn immediately in Duck, Duck, Goose. One thing is you either can look like you just don't care, and look and get very quiet and kind of, invisible. You know what I mean? You kind of, I'm just here, and I don't care about this game. This game is beneath me. I'm just sitting here to be here because I'm such a good person. And you look like that. Mm-hmm. Or you try to look like really excited. Oh, please choose me. Oh, please, depending upon the person who's being it, right? The same thing works with teachers, by the way. The same strategy. Yeah, oh, choose me. It's a risky. Usually the teacher never chooses the person who says, choose me, choose me. And I now, it took me 30 years before I realized how profound this all was, because I was in Israel at the time, and I was a couple of people in the group that I was, because I was talking about play and life and all that kind of stuff, and one of them had been in the concentration camps, and I started talking to them about looking invisible and how that really is a useful life skill, and she said, Mr. Dekoven. That's how she said, Mr. Dekoven, I want to tell you that thing that you're talking about looking invisible, for many people in the concentration camps, that was the thing that kept them from being killed. That was the very art of survival depended upon looking invisible. Well, I got that same face on my face that you got on your face right now, because I started almost crying. And it helped me realize that games are really, really profound things. They are, talk about theater, that, I mean, they may not have like characters, they may not have plot, there's no curtain, but they are true theater in its most elegant, most pure form, and that they are dealing with themes that are universal and profound. And anyhow, so that's how I wound up creating a curriculum in games. And fortunately, I wasn't kicked out, and I got to be in the school for 4 years. After 3 years, I had finished the curriculum. It was 5 volumes, 4 of which were nothing but games. 1 was a teacher's guide on how to play it. Oh, and there was a 6th volume for the parents to teach them how to help facilitate kids play. So that's how I got started.
Is that work still available somewhere? Is it in the Library of Congress or Library of Silly Things?
I don't know.
No?
It's in the library of Look What We Did in the Department of Bragging and Survival of the School District of Philadelphia. I don't know where it is.
But then things started happening like the 60s. And
they did happen,
and
yes. Well, they were happening while I was doing this. I started out in 68.
Okay. And it was in the first Earth Day. Was that in 1969 or 70?
I don't remember, but yeah, it was somewhere.
Stuart Brand and those folks, and
yes, that was the New Games Foundation,
right?
Which I, okay, so I decided that teaching that games was very important, and that we hadn't been paying much attention to it as adults, and I have another little story. You can shut me up or. Because I'm not
Keep
even
going.
answering.
We got all the time in the world. I'm happy. Go ahead.
I love time.
Go ahead.
Happiness. All I want from you is you should be happy. That's all I'm saying. What am I saying? Okay, so I have my finished curriculum. See, it's 5 volumes, and I'm going and I'm doing training of the teachers. They only get a 45-minute introduction to what this whole thing is about. So, and I have and I show them my 5, and they all think about, oh man, I want that because it would look so good on my bookshelf to have a whole set of matching. Oh boy, I don't think they wanted to do anything with the curriculum, but on my bookshelf it would make. Well, anyhow. So I decide that I have 7 games that I've prepared. And each game is an instantiation. I love using that's the first time I use it in this conversation. I'm hoping to use that again. It means it was an example. It was an example of a particular kind of game. Because games, if you start looking at them, there are many different kinds, and they allow many different kinds of social interaction to take place. Some games, there's like for example, Follow the Leader. Well, in Follow the Leader, you have one kid who is like the boss, right? And the boss is trying to catch everybody doing something wrong. So you have the boss, and you have the archetype of what you're going to do for the rest of your life. And the only way you get to be boss is to be sneaky enough and lucky enough and to go far enough that you're like right next to the boss and you manage to tag the ball. Well, this is so this is one, and that other game that I was just talking about, Duck Goose, is yet another kind of pattern, social interaction. And so there are all these different, or Steal the Bacon, or you think of any of the kids' games. A lot of them have very different social structures, and that's what I wanted to. That was the I guess the educational component. It was really a social education that the Interplay catalog was all about, because children in most schools have very little opportunity to develop their socialization skills, and they tend to be, the only real structure is that if you're a bully, you do this, and if you're not a bully, you do that. But there's no real kind of, the art of developing relationships is not taught in the classroom, and yet it's the thing it's what makes them survive in the business world. If you can't develop a good relationship, you're going to fail time after time. Mm-hmm. So anyhow, I have these 7 games that I have pre-selected, and we're going to play all 7 of them so they can experience the different kinds of social relationships that games embody. So I figured that would be enough for them. I mean, they wouldn't really understand the deeper part of how to facilitate a game, but they would at least understand that games are something that you can take seriously, that they do mean something, mm-hmm. and that if you think about it a little bit, you can create opportunities for kids to explore different dimensions of social relationships, like leadership and following and rule changing and structuring and all those kinds of things, making agreements and changing agreements. So I start out naturally with Duck Goose, since it was the first game that I ever played with the kids, and it became my archetype. And so 5 minutes afterwards, we're playing Duck Goose, and I realized, boy, we better get on to the next game because I have 6 more games to play. So I say, okay, well, that was Duck Goose. Now I want to talk to you about, and one of the teachers says, wait a minute. Wait, Mr. Dekoven. They call me Mr. Dekoven, which I appreciated. I said, Mr. Dekoven, wait a minute. I didn't get my turn. Oh, I didn't get my turn. I said, but that's okay. This is just for illustration. No, it's not. They got to be a fox. I didn't get to be a fox. I want to be the fox. I want to play. So I said, all right. And for that whole 45-minute period, we only got through 1 game and we never finished it. Duck Goose. So that was my first. See, now that was a pivotal. Yeah, we call these pivotal moments in the trade. That was one of my first pivotal moments, because I realized that for adults, this is what I realized: adults are different than kids. Adults need permission to play. Adults need the opportunity. They need an environment which is conducive to play. They need, because they live in a world which they have turned into something very odious, into something extremely unplayful. It stinks a little bit because it's extremely unplayful. And I mean, and the whole thing about looking serious is like the cardinal principle of adult interaction. You're in your office and you're laughing, and if the boss comes in, like, you just shut up as fast as possible, because why are you laughing if you're working? If you look like you're having fun. Not only does the boss disapprove, but a lot of the other coworkers disapprove, because they don't want to look like they're having fun, because they're afraid that they won't be thought of as serious enough. And so they have to look more serious than you are. So they want to oppress you. Mm-hmm. I mean, this is really so I realized that I had to create that. Kids don't need permission to have fun. They don't need permission to play. They just need the opportunity. And it's the adults who are taking that opportunity away from them. Us, we're taking it away. We prohibit it. We try to modify it into ways that don't satisfy the kids. We try to make them wear uniforms so they look like cute little baseball players, even though they're playing football and it's underwater.
Thank you for listening. The interview with Bernie continues on the next episode.